in the top right position, we do have the blue Protoss player from Team Axiom, currently 1-0 up. It is CranK. And down in the lower left position as the red Zerg from Team Dignitas, it is Tefel.
And yeah, we saw CranK try to go for a Void Ray Colossi composition. He made an extra Stargate. When you go for Void Ray Colossi, usually you don't get 3 Stargate this fast. But when he saw the Spire, he knew what he had to do. He threw down the 3rd Stargate. He wanted to make sure he does not die to Mutas. He threw down that Fleet Beacon, and he waited to make sure there was no Mutas. If there had been Mutas, he would have made that range for the Phoenixes, but now he didn't need it, so he didn't make it. He didn't waste the gas. And he just adapted pretty well, except for the first big fight that he took at his 3rd base. I think he played pretty well.
Yeah, so what we're going to be seeing on this map so far is the pylon is down on the low ground, so CranK will be taking some form of fast expansion, be it forward first or Nexus first like we saw in Game 1. Meanwhile, for Tefel, he should be getting his spawning pool out, really either now or at 15 supply, then into a hatchery, and probably going to try and take a quick 3rd. But as you pointed out before this game started, it's really difficult to do that.
Yeah, I mean, in Wings of Liberty, Tefel, he also played a lot on 2 bases.
Yep.
He was on 2 bases. He will always take to quick lair. He will get his Hydralisks out, probably his favorite unit, by the way. Get a couple links, and then he will take a 3rd, and from there, he will just evolve into Hive. Get a lot of links and Hydralisks, and those units are very good against all-ins. If you commit to Roaches, you're going to be exposed to maybe losing to great force fields and a big timing by your opponent. But if you get a lot of Hydralisk and Zerglings, to be honest, there is not much all-in you will die to. Even a 2 Colossi timing with range, he would have Corruptors on time.
Yep.
So he played very differently in the previous game. He got the safety road run and everything. But on this map, if he plays his game and if CranK gives him enough time, Tefel, I feel he can get himself in a position where he cannot really lose anymore. But I thought that was the case in the previous game, and somehow, you know, those Zealots everywhere, those swarming Zealots, man. They were swarming him.
All the way through. So basically we've got, just as we were expecting, Tefel rather getting his hatchery down. He's got his spawning pool up already. And yet again, he hasn't gone for any early Zerglings as of yet. Do you reckon, as we saw in Game 1, he's going to skip those in order to get a slightly quicker 3rd from what he scouted with this Overlord?
Yeah, he's going to get them later. And this time we had a quicker Forge. But it's not going to matter all that much. Actually, I'm just thinking about this. We might see Tefel try and take a gold here behind this. I've played a lot against Zerg on this map, and they never try to take the gold. Imagine he takes the gold near his base. I mean, it should be pretty easy to defend, because you can get these overlords in the middle of the map above the cliffs. And you're going to be able to see anything headed your way.
Well, I suppose the biggest thing about this map, which we haven't touched on, is there's no watchtower at all.
Yeah.
Which is something that we really don't often see. I'm sure you've seen it on Reddit and stuff, people discussing, well, if we took watchtowers out of the game, how it changed things. And it allows you to be a lot more aggressive and a lot more harassment. It's harder to know, but Tefel, as you quite rightly said, if he places his Overlords well, he can get complete map vision, know when CranK is going to be trying to move out, and generally have an okay time.
But remember, CranK is going to have the Mothership Core with his army as well, so he should be able to spot some of those Overlords. And then he also has Hallucination to scout a lot more. So Tefel is not going to go for the gold base route. He's taking a base at the 6 o'clock position, no gases just yet, whereas CranK, he's already got both of his gases. It's prediction time. Stargate or Robo?
I want to say Stargate, just purely because of the fact that we'll wait and see what he does from these gases, whether he gets his 3rd and 4th as early as he did in Game 1, because that was exceptionally early. But then, I don't know, because in some ways there is a lot of dead space, especially between this 3rd and main. He could really utilize that effectively if he knew the Tefel had expanded there, because there's a lot of dead space. The long rush distance by ground can be difficult to hold. So he could try and utilize that, but no, it's going to be the Robo. And
CranK, he went for a very late Zealot here. When you start your Cybernetics core, it takes 50 seconds to make it. So if you wait a couple seconds and you start a Zealot takes 38 seconds. So it will line up perfectly if you start your Zealot a couple seconds after you start your core. But now he started it almost when his core was finished. So this is going to delay Stalker by a lot, but he was able to scout the 3rd. From there, he's going to be able to decide exactly what he wants to do. We do not have a Mothership Core made just yet. CranK is going to add the 3rd gas at around the 6:30 minutes mark. And he's getting +1.
Now, 3 gas is not something you see that often. It's not something that usually most Protoss players in Heart of the Swarm at least get all 4 gas up very, very quickly. And also,
it looks like Immortal Push.
Yeah, it's an Immortal Push. It's really, really quite specific. But what are your thoughts on CranK not getting the Mothership Core out? Because I personally feel it's a very, very strong unit that stops you being quite so all-in. And I have seen quite a few Protoss players skipping it. And as obviously our resident Protoss expert, what do you think?
Did you watch Parting execute his Immortal Push on the Heart of the Swarm?
Yep.
He gets his Mothership Core as he starts the third Immortal. So that's what we might see here out of CranK if he wants to execute it the Parting way, which is definitely what you should aim to do, because he's the best Immortal Pusher on Earth. And probably in the universe.
There is no one better. And of course Parting is, well, he's pretty good at everything else as well, to be fair. Now, what we're seeing is just Tefel taking his 5th and 6th gas now, so going about what he wants to do. His lair nearly completed, he's got circling speed, he's got some roaches out, but not really doing too much, just droning really heavily as we would expect from a Zerg early on. Up to 64 harvesters to 44 probes of CranK, and as you said, here comes the 3rd Immortal. Are we going to see the Mothership Core?
Yeah, he's only on 15 probes. Yeah, we do see it right after. But he's only on 15 probes at his expansion. Yeah, so he's going to make the final probe for his expansion in his main. Then he will have 16 plus 16. Usually you make a 17th so that you go out on the map and make proxy pylons with it. He's going to follow this up most likely with the
Overseer. Sorry to interrupt you there, Tom, but the Overseer is seeing everything.
Yeah, and he should know now. He's going to make only units. He's got the Hydralisk then. If he can get a lot of Hydralisks out, and maybe, I'm not sure whether or not getting the speed here would be better first. He's actually going to get the range, because there isn't such a huge space between his bases. And he's dropping creep. He's doing a creep highway between his bases. So those Hydralisks, they're going to get very quickly to his 3rd base. Tefel might have a really good shot here at holding this.
Yeah, it is exactly what he needs to be doing. 13 Hydras are just about to pop out. The Hallucinated Phoenix coming in is going to scout all of this out, see the Overlords, and is triggering them to stop generating creep for a moment. And that is just a bit annoying. It's buying a bit of time, but the Mothership Core starting to pick away. The Hydra's coming in, though, and really Tefel now knows precisely what he's got to defend. He's pumping units as fast as he can. Groove Spines is still 25 seconds away from completion.
And CranK is gone up to 8 sentries. You need 10 when you do this push, but he might realize that he's up against Hydralisk, in which case you need less sentries. He's about to see the Hydralisk in the composition of Tefel, who has so much army already. 76 army supply to 58.
The Mothership Core was also taken down though as well, so there's no option to mass recall, which can be a bit of a problem, especially with this creep spread covering the retreat angle. The Hydras could close it down, but some good force fields there, splitting apart Tefel's army. But the Hydras with Groove Spine now in effect, just so outrange this Protoss force.
He hadn't trapped nearly enough, but the second series of force field will trap a couple extra Hydralisks. But almost all of the Hydralisks are hitting right now, because they got the range. It was so smart by Tefel, very close fight happening.
Yeah, it is incredibly close. The Immortals are still currently staying up, but the Hydralisks are starting to fall, but more Lings are on their way through. Most of the sentries have been taken out. Good little bit of focus fire there by Tefel, and that just means that these Stalkers, these Immortals, will get cleaned up very easily by Speedlings.
And Tefel, very smartly so, pulling drones. Finally, is going to take down the War Prism as well. CranK is on full retreat right now. The army supply, 56 for Tefel, 20 for CranK. Can he get home? Tefel has link speed, he has enough links to maybe surround those Immortals and kill them, in which case it will be game.
Yep, it will be. There they go. They are getting completely surrounded, and CranK GG.